Everybody, welcome back to Change Your Perspective, Change Your Awareness, Change Your Life. I'm Dr. Michelina AF, hashtag that felon doctor. And the series that I want to start today, and it's going to bring us on into the new year because it is New Year's Eve, is wounds. The wound series, W-O-U-N-D, wound. And everybody's got wounds. Everybody has a wound. So if you are not aware that you have a wound, listen up because you've got it. Now, there's so many wounds that we could talk about. I've got about 9 or 10, and there are more than this. There really are. There's a lot of wounds that we can have as humans, as people, as women, as men. For me, I like to talk about the ones that I've experienced. I don't talk about things I don't have familiarity with. If you haven't realized that by now, you haven't been watching the channel long enough, you haven't been listening to me long enough, I'm not going to talk about what I don't know about, what I can't conceptualize, what I can't theorize, what I don't have practical application or understanding of. Like, I'm not the one for it, okay? You're not going to hear me talk about childbirth. I've never given birth to a child, other than the fact that I'm sure it's horrific. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to talk about those things if I haven't experienced it myself or studied it. So, the wounds that I kind of want to cover as an overview: abandonment, rejection, trust wound, masculine energy wound, feminine energy wound, worth wound. God, that one's so important. The educational wound, the financial wound, the political wound, and the religious wound. Okay, those are the things I want to talk about. And it's going to take the next week and a half to do it because every single one of those is so involved. I'm going to try to keep it under 10 minutes as I do, but yeah. And it's so involved. The wound system, what we can be wounded by, is so involved that I wanted to do a little overview and an introduction to it because I want to talk about why we have these wounds. And this is something that I don't know why it ends up being sort of novel, profound, shocking to people. Everything goes back to our ability to feel secure and safe. So if there was anything in your formative years that kept you from feeling safe, secure, taken care of, sometimes seen and heard and understood and accepted, you're going to have a wound. You're going to have a wound because we all have the need for physical safety, emotional safety, psychological safety, mental safety, right? We have the need to be safe. And so this is why a lot of people have these psychological fears, these psychological wounds. That, if you know anything about science, you know anything about the mind-body connection, our tissues store our issues. So whatever you've experienced throughout your life lives in you until you actively heal it. Okay, there's a lot of somatic work that has to happen. I will tell you honestly, when I was coming home to self, I have worked with like 20 plus coaches to come home to self, mind, body, spirit. It is why in 5 years, I can make a total transformation turnaround from the most broken ass human you've ever met to how I am now, which again, we're always a work in progress, but far more self-aware, far more healed. I had to learn how to breathe differently. I had to learn how to walk differently. My posture had to change. Like, I had to come back emotionally. I had to learn things about myself that I didn't even want to acknowledge. It involved me moving to find out, like, that I had an abandonment rejection wound that was so deep I didn't even realize it. And that kind of work takes investing in yourself. But before you invest, you have to become aware, right? I became aware that there's something going on here. I'm sitting in a jail cell. Like, this isn't aligned with who I am. These decisions I've made aren't aligned with who I am. What is going on? And I had to do the work. And Lord knows that I had to do the work. And what I learned about not just myself, but every human under the sun, is that we have a need for psychological safety. And so, every person I've ever come into contact with, or who's been in my sphere of influence, or that I've worked with, has one of these 9 wounds. At least one. Most people have a lot of them. Now, I will say that it is hard to heal these wounds the deeper they are. Okay, so like for me, abandonment and rejection is lodged in very, 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 very deeply. I will talk more about it in the next couple of days. I didn't even know this about myself until like a year ago, very recent. And I learned even more about it when I got into partnership and was like, why is all this coming up? This is crazy. And then I was like, oh, this is why. So there's a lot that can be really detrimental, very damaging as far as our safety is concerned. And so what we do, without even realizing it, is we're functioning out of these wounded systems we don't even know. We're functioning out of these wounded spaces and places where we didn't feel safe, we didn't feel heard, we didn't feel taken care of, and we don't even know it. Because a lot of this stuff happens from 0 to 7. And 0 to 7, as I have said before, and I will say again, is a time in a life where you are in theta brainwave state, which is to say that you are a sponge taking everything in. 0 to 7, 0 to 7, 0 to 7. You cannot discern what comes into your body space, and it bypasses your conscious mind into your subconscious mind. This is all science. This isn't Michelina. We function 95% out of our subconscious mind, which means a lot of our beliefs come out of that 95% space, come out of our theta 0 to 7 self. Now, and I've said this before, I'll say this again, if you haven't, whatever you haven't thought about from your childhood is what you're functioning out of. 0 to 7, everybody has crap that they're functioning out of. Everybody. Literally every person. Because nobody has a perfect childhood. Because people aren't perfect. And because kids are a lot. And trying to live and trying to raise kids and trying to do things properly as if there were such a thing is an impossible standard. So everybody needs to go back and investigate their childhood. Without blame and with love to our parents who do the best they can with what they've got. Nobody knows how difficult it is to have a child until you have a child. And then it's like, oh, wow. And then you just gotta learn on the spot. You're doing the best you can. So 0 to 7, theta state, 95% of how we function. Now, even as we get older, things cement in by 14. From 7 to 14, we move into alpha, beta, gamma states, delta states, and things cement. So if you were picked on, if you weren't rejected, if you didn't have friends, if your family suffered some kind of misfortune, if you went through a divorce, whatever, any kind of stability that got shifted or any kind of thing that happened, cements. And so, and I would go ahead and find me the person from 0 to 14 that has had nothing traumatic happen to them. Or rather, as I like to say, nothing adverse happen to them. Okay, because adversity always happens. To a child, adversity can be, not picking the right crayon, and that can matter to a child. Really. I mean, the other day, somebody I'm friends with was talking about how her daughter threw a temper tantrum because she forgot, the mom forgot how to play a game that the daughter wanted to play. Adversity for children, 0 to 14, is anything adverse, And so I like to distinguish adversity from trauma. Adversity are the tough things that we come in contact with. Trauma is what we internalize. And so a lot of us have these wounds, have these traumas, because there were things that were adverse that knocked at our sense of safety. Now, this can be counteracted when you have a really solid family unit, when you've got someone that's a safe place for you, when you're in therapy at a young age. Like, there's ways in which this gets counteracted. But for the most part, and I find especially in my generation, we have a lot of these wounds. My generation has a lot of these wounds. I don't know why. I really don't. But I do know that a lot of us are products of the technological advancements of the 90s and the 2000s. A lot of us are products of divorce. A lot of us are products of infidelity. A lot of us are products of single-parent households that were in the medium economic scale. And I'll tell you right now, economy, little and less to do with anything, because I've seen issues, these wounding issues in affluent people, families, children, and poor people, families, children. You know what I mean? And by that I mean 6 figures plus, barely $10,000 a year. Like, I've seen it all over, you know? So it's not socioeconomic, it's stability, it's security. And it's not the same for everybody, because like, I have wounds that my siblings don't have. Thank the good Lord that they don't have it and I do, because I was older, because I put different pressures on myself. They have different things. And so, all this to say, everybody should go back and investigate, because we just take what happened to us and we're like, oh yeah, that's normal. And then you're explaining it. Have you ever had this experience and you're explaining it and someone's like, that's not really normal. And it's like, oh yeah, I guess not, now that I think about it. People have done that with me a lot, where they'll tell me about this thing that happened to them as a child and they're like, oh. And I've had that happen to me. I did that with my therapist. I was like, oh yeah, like when I was younger, I used to get locked in the kitchen. She was like, why did that happen? And I was like, oh, you know, because like I would always get on my grandmother's nerves. I would touch everything. She was like, oh yeah, maybe we want to look at that. But I was like, maybe we do. And actually, I needed to look at it. It was something that made me feel very rejected and very abandoned from a young age. I was 5. And so those are the things. Am I blaming my grandmother? No. She's doing the best she can with a strong-willed child she can't control. You know, she's doing the best she can with what she's got. I love my grandmother, God rest her soul. You know, she did the best she could with what she's got. And so looking back in love for yourself, for the people around you, for your families, for the experiences, is an important thing to do. And so I just think overviewing wounds, so important. Experiencing adversity is something that everybody has. And for the most part, a lot of times it becomes trauma because we don't know how to effectively work through it. We don't have the time, we don't have the tools, we don't have the knowledge if we're young, you know, and we can't articulate, we don't have the language. So this is really important. This is a very important series coming up that I know is going to be so beneficial to so many of you. It's going to be so valuable. I cannot wait to bring it to you. It's going to be, I think, life-changing for a lot of you. And it's just in time for the Academy to open. So if you like this series, I'm going to tell you right now, 2 of the coaches that I worked with, that I'm going to be working with as my colleagues, and I are starting the Academy January 9th. And so I will tell you, it's going to be a very low barrier to entry monthly subscription, because we want everybody in this space where growth can happen. So very excited to bring that to you in T-minus 2 weeks. New year, Academy opening up. It's only been about 3 years since I've been trying to get it done. I had to do a lot of my own growth work before it could even be a possibility. Cannot wait, cannot wait, cannot wait. More on that to come. But this series is going to be probably life-changing for you, so I can't wait to bring it to you. If you like what we're doing here on the channel, like, comment, subscribe, tell your friends, hit the bell, get notified when new things are being released. I'm releasing videos pretty much every day or every other day at this point, because there's just so much knowledge that I have and I have accumulated over the last 5 years, and I don't have anywhere to put it all. So like, because this isn't even what I talk about in my coaching. This isn't even what I teach on. This is just extra mindset, awareness, knowledge. I want to help you change your perspective, change your awareness, and change your life. And so here we are. If you like what you see, guys, I'll see you guys next time.